Good afternoon, Mr. Ridge.
Smile at me, please.
Lakefront Reserve Management Plan.
Okay, so if you recall, in September there was a council workshop on this item, and the two main areas that were raised was vehicle access to the reserve. That was generally, but also raised in particular by Nellie and John McKenzie, and that was regarding the chain across the reserve, and the effects of erosion and vehicle activity on that reserve, damage both to the lakeside and also on top of the reserve. There is the protection of the 29 notable trees, and you'll note that I've included an arborist report in the back of this item. And the third item was access to the informal boat ramp, which is known as the Scotsman's Ramp, and you'll see two or three items of communication. I think there's two letters in there from Tūwhaitoa Māori Trust Board and one from the Marina Company, both requesting closure. So I guess the instruction from that workshop was come back to council, and really to now, I guess the point is to determine appetite to consult the community and ask for their views. So I'll try and answer any questions. If I can't, Alison will.
Any questions or queries of Mr. Ridd? Councillor Cousins.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, through the Chair, a couple of things I had noted. We've had a bit of discussion amongst us councillors in regards to things. One was, I'm still perplexed as to why this came to us as a workshop when this is clearly a Fred committee discussion that should have occurred. It sort of makes a bit of a, not a mockery, but there's a process, and we sort of bypassed that process and gone straight to full council.
If I answer that, I think there was a approach from the landowners there, and a concern, and their request at that stage was that it would be considered by the Mayor and councillors in terms of the subservient nature of your committees. Obviously, council oversits over the top of Fred. At that time, you had the option of saying, actually, no, we'll refer this back to Fred, but you took the option that you would discuss it in that council setting. You did, and now you're in a council meeting. You did by virtue. You did by virtue of the fact that you had the discussion in the workshop. It was a council workshop on the 3rd.
On September.
Yeah. So we should have checked it then that we didn't want to have a workshop to go on to the Fred committee.
You had a discussion at that time, and you could have raised that issue if it had been of concern to you. But as a council, you discussed and made a number of comments and asked for this item to then come to your council.
The chair did not know we had a choice to actually to say that go away.
The other issue you've got is because there's some effects on the reserve management plan, Fred haven't got that delegation, so that's why it's coming through council.
But talking to the chair of the Fred committee, he said it has to come back to us anyway.
Well, the submissions, if it goes out, the submissions will be dealt with by Fred, surely.
Possibly, that would be your decision.
Possibly.
So normally what would happen is for the management plan you would delegate to a committee. That could be Fred or it could be an ad hoc committee like what you did this morning for another policy, the TAB policy, and it would be then up to that committee then hear and make recommendations back to council. But as John says, the governing body in terms of policy is council, and only council can make that policy decision.
I fully understand that, but for Maggie and I in Turangi, we are always promoting the community board as the correct avenue of process and up through into the big umbrella. And this, the way I see it, has not gone through that right chain. We sort of circumvented it, and we sort of opened a can of worms that anyone can just, with a little bit of a grief, come straight to council. That's just my view. Just a couple other things that I noticed, and there was in the report, on the agenda item, it says the protection of notable trees on the reserve in regards to parking. It notes that in the report it says about the roots of the trees having wear and tear on 12(3). .2, it says about vehicle activity on the tree roots. The roots of the trees in some areas are exposed due to constant vehicle use, but the report that's supplied doesn't mention that at all. The only erosion it actually refers to is the lake. So I'm surprised where that came from.
Well, that's my observation.
But it's not noted in... Sorry, John.
That's my observation.
Okay, so, but it's not noted by the guy we got from Tauranga to do the report.
No, I'm saying that's my observation.
So, I mean, it doesn't take an arborist to see roots exposed on the ground, and the fact that that's been due to cars, and I guess the policy response from that is that council has seen fit to protect those trees, and under the district plan, you are in breach of that district plan by allowing people to drive and park under those trees.
I know, but I appreciate that it's not in this report anywhere, though, is it?
But
it's not
it's in our report as officers to you, which is on, as you pointed out, page 3/3. We are experts in this field, and we are providing you our expert opinion.
I understand that, but in the photographs that you've supplied, I assume it's the photographs of the report you're talking about, is it? Where are we?
I believe we mentioned photographs.
Okay. I don't know where it is then.
I sort of agree with both parties here. I understood that the outcome of that workshop was there was one particular query with that workshop was from a couple those residents. What's their names?
So John and Nellie McKenzie. No.
Their issues weren't the traffic or travelling along there. It was the issue of the barrier right outside their place.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the one issue. I didn't feel that traffic movements were an issue at all.
So
as far as that's concerned, but it's an issue for the officers.
We're raising that as an issue in terms of not traffic movement per se, because that's part of the reserve management plan, but the damage to the notable trees.
And then the boat ramp, which have had submissions there, which obviously there's some issues there that we need to do something about. So I suppose I'm looking to the chairman of the Fred committee here, what his suggestion would be going forward. I believe a lot of us have never done a site visit as well.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All done? Have you seen the barriers up halfway?
Yeah.
Have you seen the chain?
No.
So you know the chain that they're talking about? Mm-hmm. It goes across halfway? Yep. Okay.
Could I just ask a question, Your Worship? What was the reason to engage an outside arborist when we employ arborists? We've got 2 arborists on the council.
There was 2 issues really around the fact there were notable trees, and we wanted some independence to be seen to be independent on that advice. I guess fundamentally that was it. I just felt we needed some independence.
We're the regulatory authority as well, so as a council we're protecting the trees. We can't then inform you what to do with those trees. That would be a conflict of interest for the officers involved.
Sorry, just further to that, can I ask why we use consultants from Tauranga or not within our district?
Because this guy is a recognised consultant to go to. I'm not aware of any consultants in Taupo. There's a number of arborists, but none that do consultancy work. I could be corrected on that. But
and how much did it cost?
He would have been about $1,500.
$1,500.
Yep.
And just secondly, 12/11 and 12/12. One letter from Taupo Nui Te 2020 is just about 13 months old, and the letter from Tūwharetoa Māori Trust Board is from way in the last training. Have views from either of those organisations changed?
No, we had a meeting early this year with the CEO of Tūwharetoa Māori Trust Board on a number of issues, and this is one that came up. So no, they haven't changed, and the reason I included those was really just to contextualise the issue. So I'm just presenting you with some views there, I guess.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to follow up from what Councillor Cousin's saying. I think we ascertain whether we're going to have a Fred committee or not, because, and I'm going to probably be wrong on this, last month we got onto the issue of some concessions on the lakefront, and I think at the last Fred committee we approved 3, 2 Mile Bay, kayaking, etc. Where's the difference? I mean, this is the second time that this has happened. If we either have a Fred committee or we don't, and I think that needs to be sorted out now, because that's the reason we have the Fred committee.
So again, I would say that this item is around as the resolution says, a proposed change to policy which the Fred committee don't have delegation for, hence it's sitting in front of you. Fred do have delegation for granting of licence where it's in accordance with a current management plan or policy. This is a change.
And that's
you will see, in addition to that, you will see from time to time items for things like concessions come onto the council agenda that haven't been to Fred, and that's purely due to a matter of timing. If there's a time pressure, then they could come to council, and one of those items was at the last meeting. You remember the refreshment kiosk proposals that we spoke about earlier in the minutes.
Yeah, and sorry, as not a member of the Fred Committee, I would also like the opportunity to have a say on some of these things. So,
And they'd come back, if it was a Fred thing, it comes back here anyway. It comes back to full council. Fred don't make the decision
There's
themselves.
two, council and Fred are wearing two quite separate hats, and we have to under the legislation and under the delegation that the Minister has provided. One is an operation, essentially an operational hat. I'm not explaining this very well, and Alison's the expert, and one's a policy hat. So one's sitting there wearing the hat of the Minister as the delegator, and one's as the council recommending to the Minister. So two quite distinctly different hats. Until relatively recently, we couldn't do the stuff that we asked council to do. We had to take that to the Minister for approval, so for the change to a management plan. The government saw fit to change that delegation relatively recently, but in doing so made it very clear that councils would have to have this separation. So it can be confusing, but officers are doing the best to put the right things at the right time.
Through the chair, I don't think there's any doubt in this room that we want to protect those trees. They are an iconic part of Kinloch. But there is another option discussed in the paper, which was option 2, which was close the reserve for most of the year and leave it open at peak times. I could see some benefits in that in terms of, because there will be traffic issues in Kinloch. Just interested in other people's views around the table on whether they thought that was a viable option.
I'll leave that.
So,
I think the officers know my views on this.
Yeah, so the intent is to ask, the intent of this item is whether or not there's appetite to ask the community some of those questions. So it could be that's put to the community. This is not about you making a decision today. This is about going out and asking the community.
Perhaps we go around the room we know the area, and perhaps if I could just lead off. I'm absolutely adamant that remains open to the public. For ease of access, what you're doing in effect, closing off traffic, you're in effect creating a private reserve for those lakefront homes, and I'm totally against that, having swum there since 1962, the year I was born. For the wider community, you will get an outroar, because that is a very particularly popular part, and people like to just travel down there quietly, go along there and just have a swim after work or whatever. So I'm certainly adamant that I'm against the traffic, absolute total closure. The Scotsman ramp, I believe we have reached a good decision with the marina company now that they will discount their boat launching fees quite considerably to people with smaller vessels, and met the market as it were, so I'm quite comfortable with that phasing out, or certainly just really narrowing that down to just dinghy size.
So can I just jump in? Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just really conscious that that councillors expressing their opinions on these matters now before they go out for consultation. Should you choose to go out to consultation, you wouldn't want to be seen that you're predetermining anything. So I think if you look at recommended resolution 1, which talks about supporting in principle the closure, obviously you can talk about that because you can decide whether or not to supporting the closure or not.
How do you say to support it or not?
Yeah, it's my issue is going through each one. You're likely to.
Right, I'll finish it up there. So I go around the room, I suppose, as to whether you support that part 1 of the resolution.
So I guess if I can, maybe an easy way of doing it might be saying, do you support going and asking the community their preference? Because the status quo, which is not to go out to the community, would be to leave the status quo as it currently stands. And so if that's not an option, then it's about going out to the community. And I guess then it's about what options do you put to the community.
It's an option for part of that, is number 1.
Yeah. So, Gareth, just your advice, like the Mayor, I have a different opinion on Keitha versus the boat launching ramp. So is there any way to separate them? Because I think they're quite two separate issues myself.
And they would be separated in terms of the process. You'd have people being able to submit on one, both, or neither. Yeah, one, either, or both. I guess, again, what you need to do, I think, is to decide, do you want to go out and consult? And if you do, on what options? So
you want to consult on the boat, the launching ramp.
So if you want to consult on should we close the boat launching ramp or not, then that's something you can consult on. I'd say you probably don't need to on that one because it's already in your management plan that you will restrict it to little craft. But if there's any change, then you'd have to. I guess the key question that's been asked is in terms of the reserve itself. You've had some issues raised. You've had a workshop discussion. The status quo is what you've got, which is the chain halfway along. If you're of a mind to change that in any way, you need to go through a consultation process. As part of that, you can put options out to the community and say, we're thinking of either closure or a chain right at the, a chain halfway as it is now, or take that chain down altogether. What do you think? I guess the issue, and we raise this in the workshop, is that you'll get a third of the community saying no, and a third of the community saying yes, and a third saying we don't care. So hence it's about, I think, putting out a proposal. Whether that proposal was to support in principle the closure or not is totally over to you.
Mr. Chairman, are we talking about the reserve management plan?
Yes.
If you go to page 12/4 under analysis, it states it may be of some benefit to repeat the consultation, but it is likely that the same results will occur. Then under policy implications 12/5, it is recommended that further consultation is carried out before a decision to change the reserve management plan. That's a contradiction. I think when I read this through, there's we're not split, but by going back to consultation, we're just going to come back with the same result.
Well, we're just giving some indication, I guess, but...
You have to consult if you want to change your management
That's
plan
right.
or something like this, because legally you have to. I guess what we're saying is that you're going to get a split amount of consultation depending on whether what the people's interests are. So I don't think you'll get a groundswell one way or the other.
Through the Chair. Yeah. I think when the last consultation was 2009, so in 5 years there's been a lot of massive change out there, residentially as well as holiday homes, so I think it would be wise to go back out. Probably may not get what the answer are. I think it would be wise to go for consultation, personally.
So what you're saying is to sort that chain situation out, you'd have to go out to consultation.
That's part of the adopted reserve management plan, yeah.
You can't be inconsistent with your management plan, and your management plan currently says the chain will be where it is.
We think it's sensible to ask the public, rather than go and do something, is ask the public.
We've got experience in that area, haven't we?
There's no democracy. If we do go out, is it the proposal to go out with all those options, apart from status quo, probably?
What I'm wondering...
Or, because I think with the involvement I've had with 2050, the boat ramp issue has been raised over the past 3, 4, 5 years consistently. And I think it's being used totally for boats that it was not intended for. And so I think, I know I've got to be careful in terms of my preference, but for us to make a decision, I think we need to consult with the community. And I know in saying that, the submissions will come back like they've done previously, and it makes a real hard decision. But
so possibly to help, if I could, maybe we could be recommending an amended resolution, which rather than going into the formal management plan right now, we simply go out and on an informal basis and ask the community. So, a advert in the paper and through the residents' associations, a mail drop around the area, the submission process over a month or whatever we end up doing, and then you use that to decide what your next step is. So essentially it will be a pre-consultation type process, which then you decide, then do we go to a management plan review, and if so, what form does that take? Does that take a closure? Does that take a partial closure or seasonal or whatever? So it would be an earlier step in the process, rather than, I think, what I'm hearing around the room is the concern that we're stuck into the legal process the moment we do this, and we're in a place where then you've got a management plan change on the table. So to do that, you need to have a preferred option, and what I'm hearing is that you don't really have a preferred option yet. Let's see what the community says.
Well, we're prejudging. I mean, I know the outcome, but we are really prejudging the the submission process
if we
go that way.
If we were to do that, we could go out with the options as articulated without identifying a preference. It could be just here's the issues, here's the options.
Yeah.
What do you prefer and why? And then you can then this group, Fred, can then have the discussion about where do you sit on that? Do you want to make do a change or not?
Have I already excluded myself?
No.
Your Worship, I think that's a wise suggestion of Gareth's.
What are we going to cover? We're going to cover the traffic, the chain.
Where the change should be.
What else?
Well, it's the whole gamut, really.
The whole
I mean,
thing,
if we're going out that way, we can do
Yeah.
it pretty effectively, I think. I think that's a really good approach, to be honest.
Yeah.
Clarification on the boat ramp. That's just that piece into the sand, and I think I was down there
Yes,
probably
yeah,
with
yeah.
you, John, but they just roll the boulders away.
Yeah.
The Kinloch Marine has given free launching of dinghies, etc. They haven't.
No, not free.
Not free.
No.
Nothing's
I
ever
must have
free.
misread.
Concession.
Okay, so is that an illegal or illegal boat ramp?
It's not a boat ramp. It's not a recognised boat ramp.
Okay, for launching boats.
Yeah.
Therefore, we could take action on that now.
Our management plan says that
Well, yeah.
our management plan says that it's available for small craft, and there's a size limit on it, and you'll see the signage is there. The problem with that is trying to enforce that, and of course when people have to pay on one hand to go down a DIA or the Kinloch Marina boat ramp and get this one for free, they're going to try everything they can to do the free option. We've tried to limit that through physical design, and that was the reason why these letters are dated when they were, is that the resolution that we talked about with the likes of Tuwharetoa at that point was we will limit the size of the trailers that can go down there through things like rocks and bollards and the like. What we've found there is that obviously residents don't wish to pay the marina the launching fees, and so they will use their tractors and four-wheel drives to remove whatever we put in place.
Okay. We'll go and ask.
Cousins? I don't want to fall out with you, John. I really
You'll never fall out with me, Zach. Councillor Cousins.
I'm really at odds, and I'm going to just ask the question again. We paid, how much was that report?
I don't know, Tom, but I'm saying around $1,500.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, I only did 4 years of horticulture at secondary school, so I'm a novice when it comes to green finger stuff. But we make a paper up, we get a specialist, and then we still add our own opinion in. Why do we get the report done if we're still going to add our own stuff in there? When I drove out there and walked around the trees, I can't see root damage caused by cars, by mower only, is what I see.
Okay, so that's still a vehicle, but...
Why do we pay for a report if we're going to just add in our own bits anyway, which we think should be in there?
Mr. Green outlined that. It was around independence, around the different hats we wear.
But the specialist guy should have given us all that. He just goes on about mower damage. He never once mentions cars.
This is my...
I know.
We're never going to fall out.
I hear that, but we paid someone to do that, so either he's given us a report that's not full enough, is that not, or am I just crazy there?
But Your Worship, he also gave a report on the conditions of the trees, saying.
Yes, and the roots.
He is advising that there's 2 trees, I think.
That come out.
That should come out.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I take your point about the.
We pay for a specialist, but we're saying it's not good enough.
No, not saying that at all. No, I'm saying that my observation is there's vehicle damage to the roots. Now, I'm not a qualified arborist, but that's my observation. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
I know, but that goes into our paper, which biases our decision making. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
It informed your decision.
Mr. Banks has got a
suggested amendment in terms of resolution for you to consider, that Council undertakes a pre-consultation exercise with the community to address the vehicle access and boat launching issues on the Kinloch Lakefront Reserve. Is that what you want to do?
Does that include the chain?
We had the trees in there as well.
And the chain.
Vehicle
Chain is
access.
what's caused us to all come together.
Yeah.
Change the
that's going
problem with
across.
the people.
It's vehicle access,
That'll
isn't
cover it
it?
in the vehicle.
Vehicle access covers that.
That's just vehicle access
Yeah.
that covers it.
Yep.
It's vehicle access and tree management, I think.
And tree management.
I'm going to
You mean
further...
specifically the chain?
No, it's not about it's about vehicle access, because that's what's causing the issue. I'm going to further complicate this. I'm sorry. but if you recall with Ward Place, going back to the Fred committee members, we limited consultation very much to those directly affected. Now, I'm not suggesting we just target Keitha Place, but whether or not you want to limit this to people who have homes or are residents of Kinloch,
No.
or you want to ask the whole of the general public.
The general public.
Okay. It just changes the way we approach things.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's got to be the general public, otherwise we're just...
That's fine. Just one last comment. I don't know how many of you had to the site visit and noticed that every single house along Keitha Place has their double gates facing the lake and some boats sitting right there ready to rush straight out onto the reserve.
Well,
It makes me laugh.
well, that's it. That's another issue.
And all you're going to do if you cut vehicle access is make it easier for them.
That's right. Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Your Worship, I'll move the suggested resolution that's been read out.
Seconded by Councillor Stewart. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Can you just read?
Just reread it, please.
Reread it.
Reread it.
That council undertakes a pre-consultation exercise with the community to address the vehicle access and boat launching issues on the Kinloch Lakefront Reserve.
Okay, community means the community of the Taupo District? Or the
Community is, as you've indicated.
Community at large.
Everyone uses it.
That's what I'm getting at.
It's the community at large.
Through the Chair, if I may, does that imply then that during this process and during this coming holiday period, the status quo will
Yes.
remain?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.